Hey everybody, this is Stu Smith, and we have another special guest for the Two Through and After series of our Tactical Fitness Report podcast. And what we do on the Two Through and After series is we just talk to a veteran who is gone through the entire process of getting to the military, through the military, and after the military. What's his life like throughout that whole journey? And today we have Mike Streeter, who is a former Army Ranger, 75th Ranger.
Yeah, 2nd and 75th Ranger Regiment.
There you go. Nice. Well, hey, thank you very much. It's our first Ranger we've had on the Two Through and After series. So honored to have you, and thank you for your service.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So tell us who you were before you were in the military. Where'd you grow up? What was life like as a kid for Mike Streeter?
I was born in Cincinnati, Ohio, to a family of 5. My mom and dad were always around. Well, my dad worked a lot. He worked for the paper industry. We had a really good life in Cincinnati. We were friends with a lot of good, high influential people, Bengals coaches, things like that. Pete Rose and Johnny Bench. So,
nice.
So we had a pretty good life there. It was fun. And then when I hit middle school, we moved to Hilton Head, South Carolina. My dad was retiring at that time. We had all the other kids have left the household. So he wanted to retire. So we moved to Hilton Head my freshman year of high school. And I dove into soccer, tried to be the best soccer person I was. Played gold. I was a goalkeeper.
Cool.
Won a lot of awards through that and everything. But one of my best friends in high school was in the 1st and 75th Ranger Regiment. His dad was in the 1st and 75th Ranger Regiment. And this was right before they went into Panama and afterwards, obviously.
Sure.
So there was a lot of support there. We got to see what they did on a daily basis. He would take us over to Hunter Army Airfield. We'd watch jumps, things like that. So nice. I wanted to be in the military. And when we moved to Hilton Head, I wanted to be a Marine at first because Paris Island was like, I could see Paris Island from my backyard.
Right.
It was like right across the water. And I'd seen all the movies and everything. I was like, I want to be a Marine. And then I started seeing what the Rangers are doing. I was like, maybe I just want to do that because that's like the stuff you see in movies, everything too. And so I wanted to be a part of that. So I was thinking about it. And during the time period, I graduated high school. I went to Norwich University in Vermont.
It's a great school. That's a hard school to get into as well.
Yeah, it's really hard to get into.
Yeah, most of those guys graduate with ROTC programs too, right?
Yeah, they all graduate as officers, just like West Point or Annapolis or anything else.
Yep.
It's the oldest military school in the United States. It was formed in 1819.
Damn.
My dad went there when they transitioned from horses to tanks because they had cavalry there. Wow. It's a cavalry school. Okay. So they literally went from horses to tanks.
Okay. That's cool history.
Yeah, it was really good. And the only thing, I was not that great of a student ever, and I was getting really antsy when I was in college, and then I made the decision to enlist. So I enlisted in the Army and told my recruiter I wanted to be in the Rangers. So he made that happen.
How old were you?
I was 19.
Okay.
Yeah, 19 or 20.
Okay.
Wow, long time ago.
Yeah. So tell me about that journey. As far as your physical preparation and going through boot camp and the process. Did they have an enlistment program back then where you almost like streamlined and went right to Ranger school and Ranger Regiment type stuff?
Yeah, well, what I had to do was, and I got a lot of good, before I did anything, I tell everybody this, before I enlisted, I got a lot of information from people of what I needed to do. Because, when you sign these papers and stuff, you become property of the government. They can put you wherever they want,
That's true.
And so my friend's dad, who was a Ranger, he said, you know, make sure you have them put on the contract. You're going in Ranger, you're going airborne, Ranger, and then to your Ranger Regiment. And so we made sure that was on there and everything. And so the only way I got ready for it was I had already served as a private in a military school, which we did everything all the time. Of course, we had to like square around the whole campus. We couldn't talk. We couldn't look at people. We had to like basically be in our own little world in our head.
So you were running and PTing at Norwich, obviously.
Yeah,
so
we did PT stuff. We did all the military training you would normally do in a military school. You know, we did outfield
so you were rucking.
Yeah, we were rucking. We were camping out. We were doing all the missions, everything like that. So then I went to Fort Benning in 1993, and that was a change. It was very hot, very, very hot there. Red clay everywhere. I had never been in that type of environment. Obviously, I was in the north and in Hilton Head. That's probably about the south as I had been. And
there's a whole level of humidity down there and heat that occurs, especially in the summer. I was there in August of '92 for airborne school.
Yeah,
and that sucked.
Yeah, it sucked.
I mean, it was an easy school, but it was just hot, humid, and sawdust all in your pants, and that was worse than sand.
Well, that's the funny thing, because I was afraid of heights. I was terrified of heights, and here I am signing up to be an airborne ranger. You know,
you got to master. You got to master your fears. That's for sure.
Yeah, exactly. You got to master your fears, and that's what I wanted to do. So, you know, basic training was basic training during that time period. It was during a very weird time in the military. There was things you could or couldn't do, and like they were starting the kindness stuff and everything. So it was a little different than my freshman year of military school, which I felt was a little bit harder.
Okay. But, there's also downsizing too. I mean, it was.
Yeah, they were downsizing.
It wasn't easy to get into the military at that point.
Yep. And then I went to. Then after that, when I joined, I went to basic training. Then I went to airborne school. Airborne school was fun. I enjoyed it. My first jump, I remember it was just out of the CH-47. I think that's what it was.
Yeah.
And so then we're jumping. I'm looking out of the plane like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm doing this. I was the first man. I was scared of heights. First man in the door on the first jump. So that was fun. And I knocked myself out. Of course, I hit so hard, my head went back and I knocked myself out. So they had to revive me and everything like that. But after that, it just went good. And then 3 weeks later, I graduated, went to Ranger Indoctrination Program.
Yep. They call it RASP now.
Yeah, RASP now.
Yep.
That was where I was challenged and pushed. In basic training, I'd met a prior service guy, and of course, me being young and stupid, you know, me and him didn't get along, and he was from 3rd Ranger Battalion coming back in, and he was going in. So me and him didn't get along, so he told his buddies who were instructors at the Ranger Indoctrination Program to try to get me to quit, you know, and they tried everything. They made me low crawl in PT gear, 300 meters through tall Georgia grass.
Ooh, yeah.
They made me hold 2 5-gallon jugs, run around a circle for 30 minutes.
So tell me this, when did they realize they weren't going to make you quit?
When we went to the navigation course, and they had tried everything. They pulled everything out. And the head instructor called me over to the truck. He was sitting on the back of the pickup truck that they had there. And he said, Ranger Streeter. He said, what's keeping you going? He goes, because I said, because I want to be a Ranger more than anything. And you're not going to be able to get me to quit. I said, I am harder than you. I am tougher than you. And I can do more than you. And he thought that was good, and they stopped their stuff and started treating me like everybody else, and which wasn't any better, really. I mean,
Sure.
they just notched it up on
You
me a
you
little
didn't
bit.
get the extra credit.
No, I didn't get any extra credit. They still were harder on me.
Sure.
And I think I kind of thrived on that, because in military school, the cadre would like hone in on me. Like, I had 7 roommates in military school, and I was still there. Like, I had 7 guys quit military school that were my roommates.
Oh, damn.
I mean, I had a guy who had his whole family was in the military, quit, and they would come in and just start messing with me just for the hell of it. And they're like, "Are you going to quit?" I was like, "No." They're like, "Everyone else quit." I was like, "So?" Like,
that's good. That's really good. So you get through Ranger Indoctrination Program, or what they call RAS, Ranger Assessment and Selection Program now. What happens after that?
After that, you are sent to your battalion, and before you start RAS, they ask you what battalion you want to go to, because that you get that choice most of the time.
Yeah.
So I said I wanted to go to Savannah, because it was like an hour away from my house. And they came out before we graduated and said, unfortunately, no one in this class is going to where they want to go.
Oh, bummer.
Because 2nd Battalion had a lot of people get kicked out because of the hilltop shootings. Apparently, they had a gunfight with drug dealers in the neighborhood in Tacoma.
Wow.
So a lot of people had left that were removed from battalion and stuff. So most of the class went to 2nd Battalion, which, looking back now, I hated it, but I felt like it's what needed to happen in my life. I needed to get away from my family and friends, and I needed to experience life on my own terms.
Yeah. I think we all need to grow up at some point.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I had to do a lot of growing up in Seattle. It was a new place to live, new people, new cultures. I mean, the first day I was there, someone called me a skinhead in Seattle. So, I mean, it was very, very different than what I was used to.
That's a good point. Yeah.
So I had to make a lot of adjustments in my life, and try to think about what was going on in my head at those times, so I wouldn't
Sure. There's a lot to deal with there socially, for sure.
Yeah.
So tell me this, professionally, what was it like being a Ranger?
Professionally, I loved it. It was a great group of people. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. It is challenging. It's exciting. It sucks. It sucks royally. But you get a lot of good memories when you look back on it, and you realize why they did the things they did. We were just like the SEALs, everybody else, except we had enlisted privates doing the stuff at high levels. Like, only the best made it there. Yeah. And even if you got the battalion, didn't mean you were going to stay there, because you would get kicked out if you could not perform. I mean, they would send you down the road. And after my injury, it made me feel really good. My first sergeant was First Sergeant Hugh Roberts. He was the best man ever, the best first sergeant. Him and Captain Carlson they wanted to work hard, play hard. Work hard, play hard. And that's all they drove into us. And that's what we did all the time. And then we had Colonel McChrystal, who is General McChrystal now, as our battalion commander. And it was a really good atmosphere there during that time period. I learned a lot. And I was a Gustav gunner. I became a Gustav gunner as a PFC. Loved the weapon system. I was in charge of a team as a PFC. So I had 2 other people that had to report to me. I learned how to be a leader early. And I really loved it. And then, unfortunately, in June of 96 or 97, I had a parachuting accident in the Middle East. And I unknowingly, it fractured my vertebrae. and in my back and stuff. I even jumped the next day because they just thought I sprained my ankle. And then months later, they found out, hey, there's something serious going on here. So I had to have surgery where they did a discectomy, a lapinectomy. And I had to be out of the service for a long time. And this is where I really knew, I found out about Ranger Battalion and the family I had. Hugh Roberts, instead of sending me down to regular infantry because I'd be on a sick call for like 30 days. I'd be or more.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, it was like 60 or 90 days, I think it was. And in Ranger Battalion, if you're injured that long, they send you to another unit to get better. And he sent me to S2 where I could stay in Ranger Regiment, and I got my rank up to specialist. I was one of the only untabbed specialists that went to the sergeant's board in Ranger Battalion, which is kind of a big thing.
Okay.
Because most specialists have to go to Ranger School before they can go to the sergeant's board.
Right.
So, and unfortunately, I was not able to go to Ranger School ever. I had to go to, I had a lot of personal stuff going on. My first wife at the time, when I was in Ranger Regiment. And there's a lot of drama on that side, plus my injuries, plus everything going on. So at some point, I made a decision to transfer to Fort Campbell, Kentucky. And I went there. And again, I don't think it was the best choice in my life. And we'll come back to this towards the end, but these challenges that come into our lives, we don't want them to, but there's a reason why.
All right, hey, real quick before we go on to that part of the story, a little bit different. A lot of people don't understand, like, you can be a ranger and not be tabbed a ranger, right? Because the ranger school that they have in the Army is really a leadership course that even people who aren't going in the Ranger Regiment can go to Ranger school and get tabbed a ranger. But if you go through RASP or RIP, you will, and get
your scroll.
You get stationed at the Ranger Battalion. You are a ranger, and you will wear the brown beret. I guess back then, was it a black beret?
It was a black beret back then.
Yeah. So now everybody gets the brown beret if you're part of that Ranger Battalion. So that's the difference. So just because you don't go to Ranger school doesn't mean you're not a ranger, and just because you go to Ranger school doesn't mean you are a ranger, right? So there's a little bit of
it's a lot of people way of life, everything.
Yeah, a lot of people are
very important to me.
Yes.
Yeah, it was. I tried my hardest to get to Ranger School, even after I broke my back and had my surgery and everything like that. I was still taking the PT test to try to go. Nothing was going to stop me. It's just my runs went from like a 7-minute mile to like a 15-minute mile. And
ouch.
I just couldn't. I tried and tried, but it just wasn't coming down. I don't think I was getting the right therapy and strength building to get back to. I was just trying to jump in where I left off after my surgery.
Right. So tell me this, what'd you do in Fort Campbell?
Fort Campbell, I was air assault school instructor. I was with the 3rd and 27th, I think it was. It was an infantry unit, or 3rd and 28th.
Yeah.
And I was there for a very short period, and then I eventually got a medical out, which turned into a general, because I got in trouble with going back to my wife and our issues that was happening. So I got in trouble with the battalion commander, or the brigade commander, on my way out the door. So he changed it to a general discharge under honorable conditions because of things that happened. I served like 5 days in jail because I did something stupid and dumb. I did a knee-jerk reaction thing. And lo and behold, later I found out there was a lot of other factors involved there where she was puppeteering people from the back.
Right. Yeah. So you had some domestic issues that
Yeah.
were part of this journey for you, and you're on your way out. So,
Yeah.
how was that transition going from a ranger, being used to the ranger life, to now you are a civilian in maybe terms that you didn't wish to even be a civilian at this time?
Yeah, I wasn't planning. I wanted to retire in the military and be a ranger, and I mean, I wanted to get the Delta. That's what my goal was. Go SF, everything.
Yeah.
I just felt defeated. I felt like I failed in life. I felt like I failed as a husband, and a dad, and because I had a child with her, and she had a stepdaughter. It was a very trying time, and I gave most of my stuff away when I left and put everything I could in my pickup truck. Anything that fit in my pickup truck, I just took and drove back to South Carolina.
Okay.
I moved in with my parents and tried to get stable. I bought a place soon after I got back to Hilton Head, and found a job at a stable, and which was good for me because I love animals and I love taking care of animals, and horses are like the best thing for therapy.
Oh, great therapy. Yeah. Equine therapy is, whew, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they're on a whole different level than other animals. I mean, and the things you feel from them and the way they act. Like, I had one horse that became really close to me. Her name was Freckles. She was an Appaloosa horse. It was, she was tan with like white spots all over her. She was beautiful. Great.
Yeah.
And like, when I would be working or whatever, there would be times I felt sad or depressed or like not good enough. And she would just like walk up behind me and like nudge me.
Yeah. They know, man.
Yeah.
And they bond with you too. It's an incredible.
And then I would stand up and she'd like put her head on my shoulder and I would just like hug her around the neck. Like, it was really good.
Yeah.
And right there, it was a great job. But then I started learning about corporate life and how the owners want money and customer safety goes out the window. And I was about customer safety and horse safety, and horses not working when they're injured, and he wanted them working. And so we just went back and forth. And, being in the military, you fight for those who can't fight for themselves, and it was animals included and customers,
Yeah.
And I probably did the wrong thing, but, again, another bad choice. I was on my own as a man, and it was just, I was making one bad choice after another.
Well, it sounds like you were in the right position, and then it just fell out from under you again. So
that was the constant theme. And, my therapist, I've been taking therapy for a really long time. And that's the constant theme. Like, things get up there and then it just starts going downhill.
Right. And so real quick, what did you do next? I mean, you lost this job. And
I applied for a job that was for a maintenance guy at Disney that was opening on Hilton Head Island.
Okay.
It was I'm a big kid, so it was a great thing for me, to work for Disney. I never thought about working for Disney or even thought I could. And then here's this opportunity. So I took it, Yeah. Again, I did really good. I brought the military stuff into it. I helped the manager fix things that were troublesome in the thing, streamline things a little bit better, like the storage system for our parts and where the parts would be put and everything like that, and how to do things a little bit better, and added more guest enjoyment facilities on the property, horseshoe pits, barbecue areas, things like that, because it was on an island and had a lot of natural beauty there. So we'd find areas of where a family could just go and just barbecue in a secluded area, even though there's people all around them, and enjoy nature. I love the job. But then, like, paranoia was always a big thing for me. And the hypervigilance, and then I would get nailed with depression and not good enough and not being like others.
Now, did they ever tie that into some of your military experience? Because I know shooting that Gustav can really put a concussive effect on your
they
head.
finally did in 2009 after many jobs I lost along the way. I had 9 concussions in the military, probably not counting the firing of the Gustav.
Sure. I mean, those are, yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it was a great weapon system and I absolutely loved it, but I think it did a lot of just damage, to the body.
Yeah.
But they finally gave me 100% disability. They gave me back pay. They gave me all the stuff I needed for my PTSD, my chronic pain, and just my injuries in general, and that started a road for me to start getting better. 2007, I wanted to start, I quit drinking because I had a really bad drinking problem. Plus I was on 22 pills a day. So those two together was not a very good combination.
Yeah, I can imagine that those few years on all that were pretty self-destructive.
Yeah,
I would imagine.
It was a good 8 years of just drugs and prescription drugs, just abusing the drugs I was getting from doctors.
Yeah.
I mean, and them supporting it, because like my Oxycontin went from like 5 milligrams to 85 milligrams in like 4 months.
Ouch.
There was no alternatives ever. It was always more medicine thrown at me and just not a good situation. And to the VA's credit, they were set up for peacetime stuff. And, I was at the end of the peacetime stuff, and they were probably just not caring, and at that point. But then there was a shift.
Yeah.
In 2012, they started a holistic program at the Charleston VA. And this program, I can honestly say, saved my life. I mean, it changed everything about me. And
what was unique about it compared to the years of what you had been treated with?
That's easy, because like when I'd go to the VA, I'd sit there for an hour, 2 hours, go in, see my doctor for 15 minutes. He'd type on the thing, ask me what's wrong, prescribe pills, and send me out the door. And if I had more than one thing, he wouldn't talk to me about it. He'd say, I have to make another appointment. And I live 2 hours away, so I couldn't like just make appointments. I still had to work. I still had to like do things. So then the holistic program that was started, I waited about 15 minutes. I went in. The doctor said, hi, I'm Dr. Friedman. He said, you're fat. He said, you need to lose weight. I was pushing 300 pounds at this point because of my drinking and my drugs. And he says, you need to unlearn everything you've learned up to this point, trust the process, and just do everything I tell you to do, and you'll be fine. He says, but you have to trust the process. I said, okay. And this takes me right back to the land nav course in Fort Benning, where I wasn't going to quit or give up.
Nice.
I wanted to before this appointment. And there was one thing that kept me going. My dad's, there's always tomorrow. No matter how bad life gets, there's always tomorrow. And then if it's not that day, it's the next day. It will get better.
I love that. You know what? I see a lot of success with people, no matter what they're going through, go back to where they started with that same mentality of, I want to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm not going to quit. And they kind of revert back to that day one of when they, had that moment that, they said, all right, I'm going to make this, I'm going to do this. And, they take that same kind of exuberance and excitement and motivation into this new phase that maybe they had been lacking before. and it's a game changer. It
Yeah.
really is a game changer. So what was it about this program that changed everything for you?
It was a holistic program. And when he said he wanted to wean me off my pills and get me back to me instead of masking all this stuff, he wanted me to feel the pain again. He wanted me to, know my body. And that's the most important thing I've learned over this whole thing is our mind being connected to the body and how we see our body from the inside out, not from the outside in, but from the inside out. And he said, I want you to journal every day. I want you to meditate at least 20 minutes every day. You need to start doing yoga, and you need to start eating better. He says, I don't want to put you on a diet. You just need to stop eating processed food, things out of boxes, sugar, dairy, no more sugar and dairy. Just eat healthier foods. All we're going to do is change your foods, And I was on board with that. And we started acupuncture. So I started driving to Charleston every week, once a week for acupuncture. And what I loved about that is that he didn't treat the symptoms like most doctors do. He would sit and talk to me for 15 minutes. My doctor at the VA talked to me for 15 minutes.
Wow.
And said, what's going on in your life? How are you feeling? Where does it hurt? What have you been dealing with? What are your relationships like? And what's your daily life joy on a daily basis? Like, what's your level of joy? And he would treat my acupuncture. He would treat me with the acupuncture on either that day it was more PTSD or pain. He said, because they both affected each other.
Huh.
And he said, so you have to treat what's going on at that time. So he would treat me. And the thing with acupuncture is that it's good for you and everything, but you're a little agitated afterwards.
Okay.
It does agitate you a little bit afterwards. And they treat it like an outpatient surgery. He gives you a form and it's like, this is what you don't do. This is what you do. No dairy still, no this and that and whatever. And just, you need to, and I still had to drive home 2 hours. So he would say, I want you to go downstairs, drink water and sit for 30 minutes and then drive home. So I would do that and everything. And then eventually it transitioned to me being able to do acupuncture at my yoga studio that I went to because they had acupuncture there and the government paid for it, which was good because then I didn't have to drive 2 hours.
Oh, nice.
Every day, every week. And so I started doing yoga 3 to 5 days a week. I started doing Ashtanga and Vinyasa flow. These are the strongest forms of yoga. I mean, in a 90-minute class, I would take 90-minute classes and I'd burn about 1,500 calories a class.
Damn.
It's, and I teach, the way I teach these things is kind of yoga and Ranger. It's a militant kindness. So I demand a lot out of the students, but at the level they're at. And we'll get back to that. But and that's all my teacher did. She's like, I want you to do what you can do at your level and do the best you can. And, I quit a couple times and she would call me and be like, I need you to come back because I really feel like this is going to do something for you. Don't look at the other students. This is your practice. When you're on your yoga mat, it's your practice. It's not anybody else's. You're doing it for you. You're not doing it for the person next to you, in front of you, your mom, your dad, your wife, your kids. You're doing it for you. This 90 minutes is for you. You do everything for everybody else all day long. So this is for you, so you deserve it. So I went back and I started doing it. And then over 3 years, I lost 86 pounds.
Nice.
I started doing poses that I would say I had a fixed mindset and I'd say I can't do or would never be able to do. And then I transitioned slowly without my knowledge. I transitioned to a growth mindset where, I might try this or I might be able to do that. Or, I can just do what I do on my mat today without expectation, judgment, or self-abuse, because we have a not just military people, but everybody has that tendency of self-abuse at some point. And it's funny because after I became a Ranger instructor, one of my Ranger buddies said to me one time, he's like, you know, Streeter, the things I say to myself in my head, if someone came up to me and said those to me, I'd punch them. I was like, then why do you do it? You know, like, that's where we make the mistake as people all the time, and especially military guys. Like, we set our standards sometimes unachievable, and we have to pull it back sometimes. Like, some days we can conquer the world and do everything, and other days we're at like 20%. So when you go to your mat, you should be at 20% on your mat. You do the best you can at that 20%, and you'll be fine. And that's where the growth happens, you know, and that's where my change started happening. And I became happier, and I became more involved in my community, and I became, you know, that's important when you become involved and help other people. You know, I started helping veterans, firemen. You know, I gave free classes to firemen in the Hilton Head Fire Department. I started giving back more. And when you do that, it takes you out of yourself and your misery and your self-abuse and your emotions.
It really turns that upside down, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does, because you start noticing, like, at probably like 6 months, I noticed that I was like not even thinking about how I ate. Like, my body just started saying no to things that it would say yes to before. You know, and at one time,
it wasn't a fight anymore.
No, it wasn't a fight anymore. Yeah. It was like, because I started plateauing out like 135, and I was there for like a really long time. I'm like, what's going on here? And then one day I was like, we're going to stop eating pizza. It was the pizza. We were eating pizza like 3 days a week.
Yeah, that'll do it. You know what? I had the same thing. I had I was working out hard and trying to lose weight, and just because I didn't feel I was getting too big after this lift cycle we did, and I was like, you know, I'm trying to get back to where I was in college, you know, under 200 pounds. And I wrote down everything on that I was eating, and I realized I was taking a spoonful of peanut butter after breakfast, after lunch, before bed, you know, and you add it up, it's like 500 calories of peanut butter every day, you know, that was stopping that 500 calorie deficit. I was maintaining perfectly, but I just needed a little bit less. And 3 spoonfuls of peanut butter just put me right back on the weight loss.
Yeah, that was my other unknown addiction that I had, was peanuts and shells. Yeah. You know, I'd sit there and eat a whole bag, and I'd be like, I wouldn't think of it. It was like it was like my addiction from liquor had switched to like the peanuts, and it was like
were they southern boiled peanuts?
No, they were just regular roasted. I never got into the southern boiled.
I grew up in not far from Fort Benning, actually, in North Florida, and man, southern boiled peanuts were the best. Definitely feel that. Yeah. So, all right. So now you are in healing mode, not only healing mode, but you're helping to heal others. What are you doing regularly? What is your day like now?
My day now, what I do is I teach yoga at certain studios in Huntsville, Alabama.
Okay.
In 2017, I had both my hips replaced from my injuries.
Whew.
I was doing yoga. I had them replaced in February of 2017 in April, and I was doing yoga by September of 2017. So but I was doing yoga before.
Oh yeah, sure.
So I was in a better
you had built
to start afterwards.
You had built a nice foundation of recovery for yourself.
Because yoga builds you from your pelvic floor out, as opposed to Western philosophy that builds you from your outside in. When you build from the pelvic floor all the way out, your core and your pelvis get so strong. And that's why it's good for back injuries and everything, because you are always engaging your core. You're always trying to get your torso out of your pelvis and everything like that. But when we moved here, I met a guy from Bearded Warriors. I started working with them. We do classes for veterans here. He's very into the community, helping veterans all the time. I counsel people on phones from all over the country. It's peer support, basically. I learned peer support from the Charleston VA. I also work with Gallant Few and their mission to prevent suicide in veterans through activities of climbing, biking, yoga, things like that. And also I support and work with Comfort Farms in Georgia, started by a 3rd Ranger Battalion guy who takes homeless veterans and teaches them how to farm and build back small town America, Main Street.
Nice.
It's a big complex down there. We got it from the state of Georgia. It was a free 2,000 acre property with buildings on it. And he's doing great things out there. John Jackson is doing amazing things down there with animals and the people and the farming. It's a really good thing. And I just try to reach out every day, keep life positive, especially during the times we're going through now. People can get really depressed being inside and being isolated from others.
Yeah.
I notice on social media, a lot of people go negative in a joking way.
Yeah.
And I try to like change it to look at the thing. I try, and this is where yoga has helped. It has helped me look at things from a different perspective. Like, I see this big quarantine as something greater than us, telling us that we need to slow down and reconnect. You know, connect with our families, connect with each other, connect, you know, on a different level, because I think our technology has gotten so advanced. We haven't caught up with we're having trouble keeping up with our technology, and it's pushing us faster and further.
Yeah. You know what? You know, for a device that is supposed to link people together, it has really pulled families apart.
I mean, yeah, you see it when you go out to dinner. You see families all on their phones.
Yeah.
You know, my house rule is when we eat, there's no phones. Yeah. There's no phones in the kitchen. And if we're at a restaurant, the phones are in my wife's purse. You know, she's the only one who's allowed to have her phone because she runs a 911 center. So she needs to have one. So,
yeah.
So I support her. I never thought I'd be like, it goes back to when I was a little kid. I saw that movie, Mr. Mom. And I live the life of Mr. Mom. You know, I take care of my son. I'm a school teacher now, which I never thought I'd be. I cherish every moment, even though there's times I want to strangle him to death because he's being an 8-year-old that doesn't want to do school or take school from his dad.
Sure.
But in all, it's a great experience, and my journey here has just really helped. And, you know, I'm just like everybody else. I still go through stuff. I still go through my problems and my past and things that happen. I have times where I go downhill and my friends pick me up. You know, it's all about peer support. It's about taking care of each other. And, you know, I learned that from yoga. Yoga teaches you to take care of yourself from the inside out, make those personal connections. I mean, we have a great group of people that do yoga all the time that I teach, you know, and it's a great group. One of my biggest groups is at the YMCA, where it's 30 people. It's men and women of all ages, races, and colors. And it's just a great group of people. And they all walk out of there knowing that they did the best they can, and they don't have to do anything else for their physical activity.
Yeah,
because they know they just push their bodies to their limits.
You know, that's how I found you on social media. I found you, you know, as a yoga guy on social media. So I'm sharing your page here, Yoga Ranger 275. You guys should definitely check that out. Follow him, and you know, he has some fun posts on here. I like this one with Jason back there. So yeah, funny stuff and great yoga stuff and philosophies, and so that's That's really fun. So, like I said, I wanted to get a Ranger on here. Somebody had made a comment like last week. Since everybody's home, people are able to do these, 2 through and after videos with me now. So I had a SEAL, I had a MARSOC guy, I had, let me see, who else did I have in there? So anyway, they said I needed a Ranger. So anyway, I found you and been following you for a while. And so I'm very excited to have you on here and telling your story.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And I thank you for the support.
Oh yeah. Well, the one thing I've realized too, that, most people who want to see this story, are probably one of 2 groups. You have a group that want to be Rangers, young kids that want to be Rangers. So right now they're getting a dose of, hey, it's a great job, but here's what can happen. Right.
Yeah.
So a little bit of reality, for that group. But there's also the group that's, post-military career that sees somebody who has been successful, going through this journey, even though there've been some ups and downs along the way, that you found your path, and a lot of times that path requires you to kind of go back to that initial motivation that you had when you were 18, 19 years old and you were a wannabe. You got to be a wannabe again.
Yep. You got to find that fire and that fight. It's not, life's too short to give up. I mean, you got to appreciate the moments. Your decisions affect other people. It's not just you. In fact, I think this is important to say. I did a thing with Gallant Few in Dallas in October, and one of my friends, Boone Cutler, who's a speaker, was talking, and he was talking about veteran suicide and everything like that. And he brought a mom up whose son had committed suicide. And he says, I want to ask you a question. Is the world a better place without your son? Because a lot of people who have suicide think about, the world would be a better place without me. And she broke down. The whole room broke down. And she's like, no, the world is not a better place. She got divorced. Her and her husband divorced. She told us, I love you all, but I wish I never knew you. Obviously, I mean, our choices affect other people, and the pain is just passed on to somebody else.
Yeah.
So, if there's anybody out there who's struggling, please reach out to somebody, talk to somebody, find help, because there's always tomorrow. I mean, it's an important thing.
Yeah,
Don't ever give up.
That's a great thing to live by. Don't ever give up, and there's always tomorrow for sure. Any other final remarks here? Where can people find out about more that you're doing, like the Bearded Warrior programs, or any other post-military assistance that you're doing?
Well, you can follow me at Yoga Ranger 275 on Instagram. I'm not on Facebook, just Instagram. And Bearded Warriors is on Facebook and Instagram, and so is Gallant Few, and they all have stuff that we all get involved in and do. So just reach out to them if anything's going on. Follow them. We list all of my class. I list my classes on my Instagram site all the time. I'm potentially coming up with free classes for everybody. I'm talking with Gallant Few today about free classes for veterans and spouses.
Nice.
On Zoom. So hopefully that's coming soon. So just look on my Instagram account, and that lists all my classes and upcoming events.
Great. Hey, Mike, thank you so much for your time and your story. I think it's very valuable, for people to hear that, there is, even though we have these ups and downs and transitions in life, that there's always a better tomorrow. So,
yep.
Yeah. So
life sucks. Yeah. Life sucks, but it's worth it. I mean, it's totally worth it. There's those moments that just make it special.
I love it. Hey, thank you very much for your time once again. And hey, I'll be seeing you online.
All right. Thank you, Stu. Appreciate it.
Thank you.